my responsibility is to place your eyes where I think is the best place to. And there usually in any given situation there aren't two places for that. There's usually one good place and then there's one compromised place. Where you go, well, I can look like I got another setup. I start from a third party omniscient place. Like where in the scene where can we begin that shows you what's going on, and then kind of work in terms of, well, what does the person. I'm also always following Michael, so like in the scene where he's walking down the hall with his attorney, we're going to go off the attorney and onto Michael as he goes to the door to confront Anson Bear. But filmmaking isn't, it's like if you could just strap a camera onto an actor and steady cam and like point it at their face and follow them through a movie. That's not what movie making is. That's not what it's about. It's not just about getting a performance, and it's also about the psychology of the cinematic moment, and the psychology of the presentation of that window. Where's that window? Where I'm taking your eye and I'm going to put your eye someplace. And if there's a dialogue scene going on between Michael Douglas and Sean Penn, and I for some reason take your eye and I decide to put it down here on the table real low so you can read that birthday card, I better have a fucking pretty good reason why I'm doing that. Do I need to see that? Everything's on a need to know basis. What does the audience need to know? You know, and how does that fit into the style? This movie is again disassociated and supposedly designed to leave room for, or was intended to design to the design of it was intended to leave room for the characters in the movie, the actors, to state their case. And you believe them or you don't believe them, whatever, depending on how good they do it, or how good I do it, or how the pieces that we pick to show you. That's what all we wanted to do, is just let them state their case like that. The shot of the attorney throwing down the pictures in the scene. It's like, do you have to go to that? Well, it's not really about seeing the information on the Polaroids as much as it's his flourish. It's just like a little, and Michael looks at it, and you can kind of cut away to the POV of it. But that was kind of a, you didn't really need to do that. But it's kind of, we wanted to see that there was a picture of somebody who looked like Michael in there.
What do you know? Man, if they gave me a waiver.
I'm fairly rigid about how I'm going to tell the story. Look, I don't think there's anybody in the world that has more respect for actors than I do. I mean, I think they're incredibly valuable tools at helping you tell a story. But actors don't tell a story. Actors aren't the story. The character is not the story. The character is one of the people in the story. The character is the characters that they can play. They can help you to do these things, but they're not. The movie is not about Michael Douglas. It's about Michael Douglas's character, but the story in and of itself is not just following Michael Douglas's character. It's all of the other things around that. In addition to that, if you're constantly, it's a fine line. You're using people that people want to invest in when you get a movie star. Michael Douglas is a color, you know, in a way. I mean, you're kind of. I come to things, I look at my responsibility as I should be able to get the scene if I have to do it with wooden Indians. you know, if everybody shows up embalmed, I want to be able to have figured out where the story is, where the moment is. When Michael Douglas, as Nicholas Van Norton says to his brother, this is what I think about this gift that you've just given me. I'm creating a moment. I know where that moment's coming in the text. I've underlined it, and I go, that's the moment where we need to see how he feels about this present. And we need to see that he doesn't really want to get involved. That is kind of out of guilt that he's gonna agree to go and check this thing out anyway. I know that where that's happening in the text, that's the moment for that. And I know I have to be on him for that, because I know I can't tell that that story over his shoulder. So he and I have discussed that. I also know that I've got a scene, a dialogue, 5-page dialogue scene that's taking place at a table. I also know what lenses I want to use in order to, in the medium shots, show the proper distance and put these guys on the edge of frame. And I also know from a experience standpoint what the medium, I know I'm going to have three sizes. I'm going to have a wide over, a tight over, and a tight single on each of them, and I know cosmetically what a 75 millimeter lens is going to do, and that's what I'm going to shoot my Warner Brothers close-up on. And I know that on a 40 I'm going to get a sliver of the other person. I also know that I'm going to be much more on the eye line in the 40 millimeter than I am in the 27, which is going to record the whole table and the whole room, the feel of the whole room. But I also know that I'm going to be using these three sizes and shooting multiple takes because I'm going to be allowing them in the wide one to give me these weird little things that they want to do. So I've said to them, no, your character doesn't stand up and walk over to the window and light a cigarette. You're just sitting down having lunch. So we agree on that, and I've never lit, and I've gone and I've prepped the location, and I've never ever said to anybody, who knows, they may want to walk over to the window. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I think my character would get up and walk to the window, I would go, no. You're sorely mistaken. No, you sit at this table and you have lunch. That's what you're doing. So it, it's kind of, you figured it out, and then you shoot the 27 millimeter, and then they do these things, and Michael does this great thing where he puts all the stuff back into the envelope, and he puts the envelope away, and he's kind of talking to him without really looking at him, and you go, yeah, that's great. That helps tell my story. You're helping me tell my story, but you're not telling my story. I'm telling my story, and you're the oboe, and this is a part written for the oboe, but I'm the conductor, and when I go like this, you go like this. That's what it is. It's not and it should never be an antagonistic thing, I mean, I've never worked with an actor who thought this whole thing is about my character or my process or anything. And that's one of the great gifts of working with Michael Douglas, is you work with somebody who sees the overview oftentimes a lot clearer than you do, because you get so bogged in minutia, and there's times when he will so sagely say, hey, the audience just wants to know what time it is. They don't want to know how a watch works.
This was a horrendously long movie.